I have the transcript in front of me now. I have had it in front of me for 11 days. I have read it 47 times. I have submitted it to the Review Directorate, to the Expansion Oversight Bureau, to the Null Category Reassessment Panel, and to the personal office of Fleet Arbiter Vethsoren Drael, who oversees all ranging operations in the outer corridors. Each submission has received an acknowledgement stamp. None has received a reply beyond the stamp. So I am writing this account in my own hand, under my own seal, and I am attaching the full transcript to it. If something happens to me before this document reaches the archive of understood errors, which is where I intend to send it, then at least the transcript will have one more copy in existence, outside the division's custody. The Signals Division has already reclassified the original as provisional sensitive, which is the first step toward a classification that means no one will ever read it. I know this because I have worked in this division for 19 years, and I have watched documents acquire that designation before. They always acquire it for the same reason. The document says something that the conclave does not want said. My name is Savemorin Dreth. I hold the rank of second-grade intercept analyst, Veldareth Ranging Conclave Signals Division, Outer Corridor Watch Station, Veltharan Sul. I have been in this post for 11 years. Before that I was at the relay station at Velmarin, and before that at the survey terminal near the old Kethavar border. I am good at my work. I am told this regularly by my supervisors, which is something I do not take for granted, because it is not a compliment they distribute casually in this division. On the morning of the 14th cycle of the 6th watch period, I was the analyst on primary duty when Ranging Fleet 7 entered the Velkareth corridor and began its annexation survey. I will tell you what I know about Ranging Fleet 7 and about the Velkareth corridor, because you will need that context to understand the transcript. I will tell it carefully and in order because the order is important. The accumulation of small things is important. I have thought, many times in the past 11 days, about how different the sequence looks in retrospect from how it looked as it was unfolding. At each individual step, the correct decision was made. The correct protocols were followed. The correct queries were sent and the correct relays were transmitted and the correct assessments were applied. This is part of why I am writing this account. Because if I had made mistakes, if any of us had made mistakes, the record would be easier to interpret. It would be clearer what should have been done differently. But I do not believe mistakes were made, and that is the part that is hardest to carry. Ranging Fleet 7 was a standard conclave ranging unit, 23 vessels, organized in the conclave's preferred survey formation, a lead assessment cruiser, 8 heavy cataloging ships in 2 flanking columns, 12 escort-rated hulls in a rearward screen, and 2 tender vessels at the formation's tail. The commanding officer was Range Admiral Vethkoreth Soon, a veteran of 9 ranging operations, the last 3 of which had delivered a combined 41 sector segments to the Conclave's expansion registry without incident. His tactical officer was Commander Sailvorin Tau, who had worked with Soon on 4 previous operations and was regarded in the ranging service as one of the more capable tactical officers in the Outer Corridors fleet. His signals officer, the voice I would come to know in those final hours better than I know the voices of my own colleagues, was Specialist Kethmorin Vel, a young analyst who had joined the fleet only 14 months prior, rated excellent in her last 2 performance assessments, recently recommended for promotion to full analyst grade. I did not know Specialist Vel before that morning. I know her voice now. I know it very well. The Velkareth corridor is a sector segment in the outer reaches, approximately 11 light cycles from the nearest conclave administrative station. It was assessed 183 years ago by a standard ranging probe, a small automated survey package, not a manned fleet, and received a null category rating. Null category means no viable threat, no active infrastructure, no organized presence, no energy signatures consistent with functioning defensive architecture. In the Conclave's rating system, null category is the lowest threat tier and the highest opportunity tier. It means the sector is open. It means the sector is safe. The probe logged significant debris concentration across the corridor's central transit band, fragmented hull material, scattered mineral masses, what appeared to be the remains of some ancient construction event, possibly a failed colonial attempt or a battle of the pre-compact era. The debris field had a substantial mass signature. The probe's analysis noted it as an obstruction to transit rather than a threat, and recommended a navigational bypass on any future annexation approach. The Conclave noted this. The Conclave filed the null category rating. The Conclave then did nothing with the Velkarith corridor for 183 years, because the outer reaches offered more immediately accessible territory, and because null category corridors are processed in order of expansion priority, which is set by the Bureau of Territorial Acquisition. The Bureau is methodical. It works through the queue in sequence. Velkarith came up on the priority schedule 14 months ago. Ranging Fleet 7 was dispatched. I want to be very clear about one thing before I reproduce the transcript. The Conclave's assessment of the Velkarith corridor was not careless. It was performed correctly, according to the established protocols of ranging survey methodology. The probe's instruments were functioning within calibration parameters. The 183-year-old null category rating was based on real data, collected and analyzed in good faith by a well-designed autonomous survey system that had been calibrated by competent technicians before deployment. The rating was the correct output for the data the probe had. The rating was wrong, but it was not wrong because anyone made an error. It was wrong because the debris field was not debris. I learned this gradually over the course of 7 hours in real time, through the transmissions of 23 ships as they ceased, one by one, to exist. The first transmission of the morning watch was routine. Ranging Fleet 7 had entered the corridor's outer boundary at 2:14 and was proceeding on the charted approach vector, following the navigational bypass the original probe had recommended, skirting the debris field's edge rather than attempting direct transit through the concentrated mass zone. Range Admiral Soon's opening log entry was standard operational language. Formation integrity confirmed. All instruments nominal. The corridor's background readings matched the archived survey parameters within acceptable variance. He noted that the debris field was visually substantial. Specialist Vell's description in her initial scan report was a wall of broken material, very dense, runs about 40 degrees across our forward arc, but that the mass signatures were consistent with inorganic fragmentation, which was exactly what the probe had logged. I remember thinking, when I reviewed that first set of transmissions, that this was going to be an unremarkable day. Ranging Fleet 7 had been in transit for 41 days. Range Admiral Soon had done this 9 times before. The fleet was experienced, disciplined, and running on schedule. The Velkarith corridor had waited 183 years without incident. It showed no signs of complicating the matter further. I logged the transmissions, forwarded the routine data packet to the Directorate's morning queue, and poured myself a measure of thermal concentrate from the canister on my workstation. The second transmission block, received at 3:41, contained the first anomaly. It was small. It was the kind of thing that a less careful analyst might have flagged as instrument variance and moved past. The debris field's total mass signature, rescanned by the fleet's more capable instruments at closer range, did not match the probe's archived figure. Not dramatically, the discrepancy was 11%, which is within the range of what instrument calibration drift over 183 years might produce in an archived reading. But it was also at the high end of that range. In the 11 years I have been at this station, I have reviewed thousands of Ranging Fleet submissions, and I have learned to distinguish between the kind of discrepancy that means nothing and the kind that asks a question. An 11% mass signature variance was at the edge of asking a question. Specialist Vell noted it in her scan log. She sent a query to the nearest relay station, which was me, asking whether there was any record of mass accumulation events in the corridor that might account for additional debris consolidation since the original survey. I checked the archive. I searched under 3 different classification schemes. There was no such record, no logged events, no passing survey data, no adjacent corridor reports that mentioned the Vell-Kareth segment. I sent back a confirmation of no record and a recommendation to continue survey on existing parameters, with a note that the variance was worth monitoring. This was the correct response. I stand by it. There was no information available to me at that time that would have suggested a different response. At 4:12, the fleet reached the designated initial survey position, the closest approach point to the debris field on the bypass vector, and began its formal cataloging sweep. I received 21 minutes of instrument data, all of it consistent with what the probe had logged 183 years earlier. Fragmented hull plating, scattered mineral aggregates, compressed gas pockets from ancient detonations, the general silhouette of a historical collision or battle site. The conclave's cataloging format has a specific designation for this type of debris field. It is called a bone field in the ranging service's informal vocabulary, the accumulated remains of a conflict or catastrophe, picked clean by time, the bones left where they fell. Specialist Vell used that term in her 433 notation. Standard bone field catalog in progress. No anomalies beyond the mass signature discrepancy already noted. I want you to understand what it felt like to sit at my station and receive those transmissions. It felt like every other morning I have spent at this post. It felt like routine. The corridor was quiet, the fleet was professional, the data was clean. The bone field was cataloging normally. Range Admiral Soon had done this 9 times before. The formation was tight and well disciplined. The signals traffic from the fleet was calm and precise, the way it is when an experienced crew is doing familiar work and nothing is wrong. I had reviewed the mass signature variance. I had noted it. I had forwarded it with a standard monitoring flag. I felt that I had done everything correctly because I had done everything correctly. At 4:51, the second anomaly arrived. Specialist Vell sent a scan notation flagged Priority 2, which is 1 step above routine but well below alarm status. The notation read, "Mass signature discrepancy has increased, now reading 17% above archived baseline. Fleet instruments confirm, not instrument variance, the field's mass is genuinely above probe reading. Possible new material consolidation. Possibly a second debris source contributing from a blind angle to the probe's survey arc. Recommend extended scan before proceeding to annexation mark placement." Range Admiral Soon approved the extended scan. This was correct procedure. This was exactly what a careful, experienced commanding officer should do when his instruments disagree with archived data on a second successive check. I noted the approval in my log and flagged the incoming extended scan data for priority review. My thermal concentrate had gone cold. I poured it out and refilled the canister. At 5:07, the extended scan completed. I received the results at 5:08. I read them twice before I understood what I was reading, and then I read them a third time because I still was not certain I understood. I have a notation in my log at 0508:43 that reads, "Rereading extended scan, possible instrument calibration error, querying fleet." I wrote that notation because I needed to do something with my hands while I processed what the numbers said, and writing is what I do with my hands. The mass signature discrepancy under extended scan at reduced range was not 17%. It was not a rounding error in the instruments, and it was not material consolidation, and it was not a contributing source from outside the probe's original survey arc. The Vell-Kareth debris field, under extended scan, had a mass signature 431% above the probe's archived figure. I know what that number means. I worked it out at my station in approximately 40 seconds, with a notation tablet and a standard mass conversion reference. The probe's archived figure represented a debris field of fragmented hull material and mineral mass consistent with, at most, a few dozen destroyed vessels and their associated wreckage, distributed across the corridor's central transit band. A 431% increase in mass signature meant that either the probe's instruments had been catastrophically wrong in their original survey, which is possible, if rare, and is documented in the calibration failure literature, or the debris field contained 4 to 5 times the material mass the probe had detected. 4 to 5 times more material than the probe had logged, in a corridor rated null category, with no logged events in 183 years. I sat with that number for approximately 20 seconds. I am counting this as the longest 20 seconds of my professional career, and I have worked through 2 navigational emergencies and a transit corridor collapse event during my time at this station. Then I transmitted a Priority 2 query back to the fleet, asking for clarification of the extended scan methodology, because I wanted to be certain the instruments were correctly calibrated before I escalated the finding. I never received a response to that query. At 5:14, I received the following transmission from Specialist Vel. Relay Station Vel Theron Sewell, this is Ranging Fleet 7 signals, please confirm receipt. We are observing movement in the debris field. Repeat, we are observing movement in the debris field. Range Admiral soon requests immediate relay to Conclave Expansion Oversight. The movement is organized. The field is not moving as a mass. Individual elements are separating from the aggregate and moving on independent vectors. This is not gravitational drift. This is deliberate. Please confirm receipt and relay over. I confirmed receipt. I transmitted the relay immediately. I did not pause. I did not reread it. When a signals officer says the word deliberate in that tone, you do not pause. To my knowledge, Expansion Oversight received that relay. To my knowledge, it was logged, assigned a tracking number, and placed in the standard review queue, where it awaited analysis by a senior assessor who was not on duty at that hour. The Directorate's morning review period does not begin until the 3rd hour of the standard work cycle, and it was still the 2nd hour. At 5:18, I received the following from Specialist Vel. Relay confirmed, thank you. Update for the record. Fleet instruments are now resolving the moving elements as distinct hull profiles. I want to be very precise about what I mean. The debris field contains hull profiles, not debris fragments shaped like hull profiles, vessels. The fleet is counting them. I will transmit the count as soon as we have a reliable figure. Range Admiral soon has ordered the formation to hold position and has altered our aspect to present minimum cross-section. All systems nominal. At 5:21. Hull count update. We are currently reading 47 distinct hull profiles in the field. 47. They are cold, no power signature, no heat gradient, no active emissions. They are reading on our instruments exactly the way debris reads. They were reading on our instruments exactly the way debris reads, until they moved. At 5:24. Hull count update, 91 distinct profiles now with a clearer sense of scale. These are large. They are much larger than our vessels. Range Admiral soon has broadcast an identification hail on all standard frequencies and is awaiting response. No response received. The profiles are continuing to separate from the aggregate field. They are moving very slowly. Their vector is not toward us. Their vector is perpendicular to the corridor's transit axis, which is, I am not sure how to characterize this. They are moving as if they are taking up positions, as if they are arranging themselves. I transmitted another Priority 2 relay to Expansion Oversight at 5:25. I flagged it with the hull count. I noted that the hull profiles were large, and that they had been moving with apparent deliberate organization, and that no active emissions had been detected. I requested an immediate senior assessor review and noted the time-critical nature of the situation. I used the specific phrase, time-critical, because it is one of 4 flagged phrases in the division's escalation protocol that triggers an automatic page to the duty supervisor regardless of the hour. I received an automated acknowledgement. At 5:29, hull count update, 138 distinct profiles. I have a better sense of their dimensions now. The largest of them, and I want to state this figure clearly for the record, the largest of them is reading at approximately 900 meters primary axis. I am going to repeat that. 900 meters. Our assessment cruiser is 140 meters. The largest profiles in that field are more than 6 times our length. There are at least a dozen of them reading at 800 meters or above. Range Admiral Soon has broadcast hails on all available frequencies, including the 3 that our survey database lists as standard human emergency channels. I am noting for the record that our survey database on human communication protocols is 183 years old. I sent a Priority 1 relay at 5:30. Priority 1 means immediate escalation, supervisory contact required, do not queue, wake the duty officer regardless of watch period. I had the authority to send Priority 1 relays. I had sent 3 in 11 years, all for navigational emergencies involving transit corridor integrity failures. This was my 4th. When I filed it, I listed the estimated hull count, the maximum hull size, the absence of any active emissions, and the age of our human communication database. I thought, when I filed it, that if I were reading this Priority 1 relay from the outside, I would not know what to do with it either. My supervisor, Senior Analyst Vethkoran Sale, received the Priority 1 relay at 5:33 and contacted me by direct channel at 5:34. I gave him the hull count and the size figures. He was silent for 11 seconds. That silence was the longest my supervisor has been silent in 11 years of working together. Then he told me to continue monitoring and relay all traffic immediately, and that he was contacting the directorate. He did not say anything else. He did not ask questions. I think this was because he was thinking, as I was thinking, that the questions we had were not the kind that answers were available for. At 5:37, hull count update, 194 distinct profiles. The formation, I am going to call it a formation because that is what it appears to be, the formation is nearly complete. The profiles have arranged themselves in a series of layered lines across the corridor's transit axis. They are completely cold. No power signature, no heat gradient, no active emissions. They are reading the way a dead star reads. They are reading the way space reads. If they had not moved, if we had approached on the direct transit vector rather than the bypass, we would have passed through the middle of them. We would have passed through their formation and cataloged them as debris and marked the corridor and left. I want this statement on record. If we had taken the direct transit vector, we would never have known what we were inside. At 5:41, formation count finalized, 214 distinct hull profiles. Range Admiral Soon has confirmed this figure with 3 independent instrument sweeps, 214, no active emissions, no communications response to any hail. The formation is static, they have stopped moving. They are holding their positions across the corridor's transit axis. We are at 11 kilometers from the nearest hull in the formation. I can see it on the visual feed. I am going to describe it for the record, because I want someone at the relay stations to know what we are looking at. I want you to know that I have read this passage 47 times, and it is the passage that stops me every time. It is the passage where Specialist Vell's voice, which had been controlled and professional through every transmission, through the anomalies and the hull counts and the size figures and the formation confirmation. It is the passage where her voice does something that is very nearly not controlled. Not afraid. It is harder to name than afraid. It is the voice of someone who is a professional, trying to be precise about something that is larger than precision, and succeeding at the precision while something else moves through it. The hull I am looking at is approximately 870 meters by my instruments. Its plating is heavily marked. I want to say scarred, but that is not quite right. It is more that the plating looks as if it has accumulated the evidence of a very long time. There are marks across it that are consistent with combat damage from multiple historical periods, and there are areas where the plating has been replaced and the replacement plating has itself accumulated new damage, and there are areas where the replacement of the replacement is visible. It is a ship that has been repaired so many times that the repairs themselves have become old. It is cold, completely cold. Our instruments read it the way they read a rock, but it is not a rock. It has gun emplacement. I am counting the gun emplacements. I have counted, so far from this aspect alone, 47 gun emplacements on the primary hull face. I will stop there. I am not going to count all of them. There was a gap in the transmissions after that one. 7 minutes, from 5:41 to 5:48, with no signal from ranging Fleet 7. The relay chain was functional. I confirmed it twice during those 7 minutes. The fleet was simply not transmitting. I have thought about what was happening aboard the assessment cruiser during those 7 minutes. I think Range Admiral Soon was consulting with Commander Tao and with his other senior officers, and that Specialist Vel was at her station listening to that consultation, and that all of them were looking at the visual feed showing 214 cold hulls arranged in formation across the corridor transit axis, and that none of them had anything to say that could be transmitted to a relay station 7 light minutes away, and thereby change anything about their situation. I spent those 7 minutes at my own station, doing the same kind of arithmetic I expect Commander Tao was doing at his. The corridor geometry is not complicated. The formation, 214 hulls arranged in layered lines across the transit axis, occupied a specific span of the corridor's cross-section. Ranging Fleet 7, 23 vessels, was positioned outside that span at 11 kilometers. The closest approach to the corridor's outer boundary, the exit point, was approximately 14 minutes of travel at standard emergency speed, by my estimate of the fleet's position and the corridor geometry, though Specialist Vel later corrected this to 4 minutes. So my estimate was wrong in a direction that matters less in retrospect than it seemed to at the time. I also spent a portion of those 7 minutes thinking about the size figures Specialist Vel had transmitted. 900 meters primary axis for the largest profiles. 800 meters or above for at least a dozen. Our assessment cruiser was 140 meters. Our heavy cataloging ships were 110 meters. Our escort hulls were 70 meters. These are the vessels that constitute a standard ranging fleet. 23 of them, in total, 412 crew, sent to survey a null category corridor and place the annexation markers and return with a confirmed rating for the Bureau of Territorial Acquisitions Registry. 214 hulls, some of them by the instrument data 900 meters long. I have no reference point for 900 meters of warship. I have no training, no database, no protocol that addresses it. The division's vessel identification library, which I have maintained for 11 years, and which I keep current with every quarterly update from the Conclave's intelligence archive, contains no entry for a vessel class with a primary axis of 900 meters. It does not contain an entry for 800 meters. The largest vessel class in the library has a primary axis of 260 meters, and that is a dreadnought category ship that has not been produced by any known power in the last 40 years, and that exists in the library primarily as a historical reference. 900 meters is not in the library. I do not have a word for what 900 meters of warship is in the vocabulary the division has given me. I was still thinking about this when the next transmission arrived. At 5:48. No change to the formation. No change to the hull profiles. No active emissions, no communications. Range Admiral Soon has convened a brief command consultation and has transmitted a formal identification request on the International Compact Emergency Frequency, which is the oldest interstellar emergency channel in our database. The compact dissolved 900 years ago, but the frequency is still registered in our protocols as a legacy designation. We are waiting. At 5:51, I received a direct channel call from my supervisor, who told me that the Directorate was aware of the situation and that Fleet Arbiter Veth Soren Drail had been contacted, and that a senior assessor team was being assembled to review the transmitted data. The assessor team was at another station, 7 transit hours away. My supervisor said this as if it were useful information. I did not point out that 7 transit hours was not a relevant figure. He told me to continue monitoring. He sounded, I thought, as if he was trying to sound calmer than he was. I have worked with senior analyst Veth Koran Sale for 11 years. I know what calm sounds like on him. This was not it. At 5:54. Ranging Fleet 7 signals, update for record. No response to the compact emergency frequency. Range Admiral Soon is, I want to log his exact words. He said, quote, "We are going to begin a measured withdrawal from our current position. We will proceed on the reverse of our approach vector slowly, with all instruments active and all frequencies open. We will not make any sudden movements. We will not alter our aspect in a way that could be interpreted as an attack posture. We will withdraw and we will transmit full data to the relay station, and we will leave this corridor and we will not return." End quote. I received this transmission at 5:54. I believe it was the right decision. I believed it when I heard it and I believe it now. A measured withdrawal, full data transmitted, no sudden movements, leave the corridor. This was, I think, the best choice available under the circumstances. I want the record to reflect that I believe Range Admiral Veth Korath Soon made the correct decision. At 5:56. Hull 4 starboard escort column contact lost. I am saying contact lost because our instruments no longer detect the hull. Hull 4 has not transmitted a distress signal. Hull 4 has not transmitted any signal. Hull 4 simply ceased to appear on our instruments 30 seconds ago. Range Admiral Soon has confirmed. Commander Tal confirms. We have lost contact with Hull 4. I do not know. I have thought about this many times in the 11 days since. I do not know what happened to Hull 4. I do not know if the crew of Hull 4 had any warning. I do not know how many people were aboard Hull 4. I have the roster for Ranging Fleet 7, filed with the Directorate before departure. Hull 4 was a standard escort-rated vessel, crew complement of 18. I do not know if those 18 people knew what was happening before it was over, or if they had time to understand anything, or if there was an interval between the moment they understood and the moment they were gone. I have no data on this question. I have the transmission that precedes the loss of Hull 4's signal, which describes the withdrawal beginning, and I have the transmission that follows it, and in the interval between those two transmissions Hull 4 and 18 people are gone. That is all I know. At 5:57. Hull 17, portside cataloging column contact lost. Hull 9, portside cataloging column contact lost. At 5:58. Hull 22, rearward screen. Hull 6, rearward screen. Hull 12, rearward screen. Contact lost on all 3. At 5:59. Contact lost. Hulls 2, 3, 8, 11, 14, 19, 21. 7 hulls in the last 40 seconds. Range Admiral Soon has ordered full emergency acceleration on withdrawal vector. He has ordered all hulls to maximum emergency output. He has ordered, I am transmitting this because I want it on record, he has ordered that all signals traffic be directed to the relay station in a continuous open transmission. Everything, all channels, everything we have, because he wants the data to reach the relay station even if the ships do not. I am going to continue transmitting. I am going to continue transmitting everything. I want you to understand what it was like to sit at my station and receive this. The transmission quality was perfect. The signal was clear and uninterrupted and consistent, the way it always is over a properly maintained relay chain, and there was nothing wrong with the equipment at any point during the event. The distance between my station and ranging Fleet 7 was such that there was a small but measurable transmission lag, approximately 4 seconds, which meant that what I was hearing had already happened by the time it reached me. I was 4 seconds behind what was occurring. I could not speak to anyone on the fleet in less than 4 seconds. I could not warn anyone. I could not change anything. I was sitting at my station with a perfect signal, 4 seconds behind the deaths of 23 ships and everyone aboard them, and there was nothing I could do with my hands except log the transmissions as they arrived and forward them to the relay chain. At 600. Contact lost. Hulls 5, 13, 15, 18, 23. 23 is one of the tenders. I don't contact lost on 23. Contact lost. 7 hulls remaining. Commander Tal has sent me a formatted tactical report for relay. I am transmitting it now. The formation remains static. The hull profiles remain cold. There are no active emissions from the formation. Commander Tal cannot determine the weapon system being used. Nothing visible. Nothing on active scan. The hulls simply cease to register. He wants me to say that for the record. Nothing on active scan. No weapons discharge detected. No energy signatures consistent with any weapons system in our database. Nothing. At 6:01. Contact lost. Hull 7, 10, 16, 20. 4 hulls remaining. 4 hulls remaining. The assessment cruiser, Hull 1. Us, 2 escort hulls, 1 tender. Range Admiral Soon. I want to record that Range Admiral Soon is at his command position and has been at his command position throughout this event, and that he has not transmitted a distress call because there is no one close enough to reach us in time. He knows this. He told me this approximately 2 minutes ago when I asked him whether we should. He said there is no one close enough to reach us in time, so instead of a distress call we will send everything we know and the relay station will have it, and that is the best we can do. I agree with him. I think this is the right decision. I have read this passage more times than I can accurately count. At 6:02. Contact lost. Escort hulls 2 and 3. Contact lost. Tender hull, the second tender. I don't have the hull number. Contact lost on the second tender. Hull 1 remaining. Assessment cruiser Us. Range Admiral Soon has confirmed the formation has not moved. The hull profiles are still reading cold. There are no active emissions. We are at approximately 7 kilometers from the nearest profile and retreating at emergency speed. We are still in the corridor. The corridor it takes time to clear the corridor perimeter. We need approximately 4 minutes at emergency speed to clear the outer boundary. At 6:03. I want to put this on record because I think it is the most important thing I will transmit, and I want to be precise about it. I have a clear visual on the nearest hull profile. I am looking at it on the forward visual feed. It is approximately 7 kilometers away, and it is 820 meters long by my instruments, and it is not moving, and it is cold, and it has not done anything that I can see. It is just there. It has been just there, cold and still, since we first saw it move into position. And I am trying to understand what it is that we walked into. We came here because a probe 183 years ago logged this as a debris field. And it is a debris field. I think it has always been a debris field. I think it has been here for a very long time, exactly as cold and still as our probe found it, and I think it has been here waiting. I don't know what it is waiting for. I don't know if it waits for anyone specifically or if it waits for anything that comes into the corridor. I don't know if it has a purpose or if the purpose is simply to be here, but I think that is what it is. It has been here for a long time, a very long time, and it was here before we came, and it will be here after. The transmission from Ranging Fleet 7 ended at 0603:47. Mid-syllable. I logged the end of transmission at 0603:48. I sat at my station for approximately 4 seconds without moving. I have thought about those 4 seconds often. I think I was waiting for the transmission to resume, the way you wait for a door that has just closed to open again, the way the mind holds a possibility open slightly longer than the evidence supports. Then I ran a signal integrity check, which confirmed that the interruption was not on my end. I ran a second check. I ran a third. I transmitted a standard "please confirm" signal interrupted message to the fleet's frequency. I received no response. I transmitted the message again at 1-minute intervals for the next 30 minutes. I received no response to any of them. I called Senior Analyst Vethkoran Sale at 6:04. He had been monitoring the transmission feed in parallel with me and had heard everything I heard. He did not say anything when I called. There was a silence of approximately 8 seconds on the channel, which is the longest silence I have ever experienced on a direct channel with my supervisor. Then he told me to compile the full transcript and submit it to the Directorate under Priority 1 classification, and to flag it for the attention of Fleet Arbiter Drail personally, and to mark my own station logs as classified pending further instruction. I compiled the transcript. I submitted it. I have documented what happened to that submission in the opening paragraph of this account. I want to tell you what else I know, because the transcript alone is not everything. The mass signature figure from Ranging Fleet 7's extended scan at 5:08 was retained in the fleet's transmitted instrument data, which I relayed in full to the Directorate. I have performed the full analysis myself, using the division's standard mass conversion methodology. The debris field, the formation, the 214 hull profiles, their combined mass resolves, under the extended scan data, to a figure consistent with 214 vessels of the size class Specialist Vel described. There is no discrepancy in the data. The instruments logged the formation's mass accurately. The mass was there. The formation was there. The probe's instruments had also been accurate for what they found at the time of the original survey. The difference between those two mass figures, the probe's figure from 183 years ago and Ranging Fleet 7's figure, accounts for 171 additional vessels. The probe logged 43 hull mass equivalents. Ranging Fleet 7's extended scan logged 214. The formation was larger by 171 vessels than what the probe had found 183 years ago. I have spent 11 days trying to determine if there is an alternative explanation for this difference. I have not found one that satisfies the instrument data. There are 3 possible explanations I have considered. First, that the probe's instruments were calibrated incorrectly and significantly undercounted the field's mass possible, but the calibration records do not support an error of this magnitude. Second, that there was a mass accumulation event of some kind that the archive contains no record of possible, but such an event would have been detectable by any survey instrument in the region, and no such detection exists in the archive. Third, that the formation grew, in the 183 years between the probe's survey and Ranging Fleet 7's arrival, by 171 vessels. The third explanation is the one the data supports. I do not know what that means for what comes next. I am not qualified to assess strategic implications, but I have written it down because I believe it should be written down by someone who worked through the numbers and confirmed them. I have also noted, for the record, the corridor's geographic position. The Velkareth corridor's approach, once through the outer boundary, requires a transit of approximately 6 additional light cycles to reach the frontier of what our maps designate as the former Terran administrative zone. I have noted this not because I believe any further ranging fleet should attempt that approach, but because I believe the navigation charts should be amended immediately to reflect a permanent null access designation for the Velkareth corridor, and all adjacent segments sharing its boundary with the former Terran Administrative Zone. I have submitted this recommendation formally to the Bureau of Territorial Acquisition. I submitted it on the second day following the event. I have not yet received a response. I am going to tell you finally what I think happened, not what I know, what I think. I think the Velkarith corridor has been occupied for a very long time. I think the hulls in that formation have been there for longer than our records of the corridor extend, and possibly longer than our records of the outer reaches extend. I think the probe's survey found 43 of them, because 43 of them were present in the formation at the time of the survey, all cold, all reading as debris, all entirely indistinguishable from the inorganic material around them. I think the 171 additional vessels arrived in the interval between the probe's survey and Ranging Fleet 7's arrival, over the course of 183 years, one by one or in small groups, and took their positions in the formation, and went cold and waited. I think the formation was not complete when the probe surveyed the corridor. I think it was still assembling, and it had been assembling before the probe arrived, and it was still assembling after, and it is possibly still assembling now. I think it has been assembling for a very long time, and it is more complete now than it was 183 years ago, and I do not know if it is finished. The extended scan data from Ranging Fleet 7's 508 transmission includes a material degradation age analysis of the hull profiles. This analysis is imprecise, and I want to be clear about that. The Velkarith formation represented an extremely challenging dataset, and the age estimation methodology was not designed for what it was applied to. But the analysis was performed, and it produced a figure, and I believe the figure should be on record. The figure was a range. The lower bound of the range was 400 years, the upper bound was 900. The probe surveyed the corridor 183 years ago and found 43 hull mass equivalents. The hull profiles in the formation were present, by the age analysis, for at least 400 years before Ranging Fleet 7 arrived. They were there for 217 years before the probe found them. They were there while the compact was still operating, sending its formal diplomatic channels on frequencies the probe's database listed as legacy designations. They were there before those frequencies became legacy designations. They were there, cold and still and reading as debris, while the galaxy around them reorganized itself and forgot they existed. I do not know what the formation is waiting for. I do not know if it is waiting for anything specific. It is possible that what happened to Ranging Fleet 7 happened simply because Ranging Fleet 7 was there, inside the corridor, inside the formation's perimeter, and the response was automatic in the way that a lock responds to the wrong key, not a decision, not a judgment, just a mechanism doing what mechanisms do. It is possible that the formation has no purpose beyond the corridor itself. That it is a garrison in the oldest sense of that word, not an army marshalling to advance, but a presence posted to hold a position, indefinitely, against whatever comes. That the patience required for this is not remarkable to the thing that holds it, because the thing that holds it does not experience patience the way we experience patience. It simply exists in the corridor cold, and the corridor remains closed. Ranging Fleet 7 was inside the formation before we understood what it was inside. Specialist Vel said it herself, in the 541 transmission. If they had taken the direct transit vector, they would have passed through the middle of the formation and catalogued it as debris and marked the corridor and departed. They would have brought that data back to the Directorate. The corridor would have advanced through the acquisition registry, and whatever came next in the annexation sequence would eventually have led to structures and personnel and formal conclave presence in the corridor. And at some point after that, I do not know when, I do not know what the specific trigger would have been, the formation would have responded. I have tried not to think too carefully about what that would have looked like. What 214 hulls of that class, responding to a formal conclave presence in the corridor, in the middle of an active annexation operation, would look like from the outside. I have not been entirely successful at not thinking about it. I want the record to reflect that I am grateful, in a complicated way, that Ranging Fleet 7 took the bypass vector. What I know is this: Ranging Fleet 7 entered the Velkareth corridor on standard approach, in good order, with a crew of 412 people who were doing their jobs correctly. They encountered an anomaly. They investigated it according to proper procedure, following the correct protocols at every step. They transmitted everything they found to the nearest relay station, continuously, because their commanding officer decided that the data reaching the relay station was the best outcome still available to them. When they understood what they were inside, they attempted a measured withdrawal. They continued transmitting throughout the withdrawal. Their signals officer transmitted continuously, professionally, precisely, until she could not. I received those transmissions in real time. I relayed everything I could. I sat at my station, and I listened to 412 people cease to transmit, one after another, while a formation of 214 cold hulls held its positions across the corridor transit axis without moving, without emitting, without announcing itself in any way. Commander Tal confirmed in his final formatted report that there was nothing on active scan, no energy signatures consistent with any weapons system in the Conclave's database, no weapons discharge logged, no active emissions detected from a single hull profile throughout the entire 7-hour event. The formation was cold when it moved into position, and it was cold when it ended Ranging Fleet 7, and I have no information about its condition now because the corridor is silent, and there is no one to send to ask. I am recommending, formally in this document, that the Velkareth corridor and all adjacent segments sharing its boundary with the former Terran administrative zone be designated null access, permanently, and that this designation be accompanied by a navigational exclusion flag in all standard approach charts for the outer reaches. I am recommending that no further ranging fleet be dispatched to investigate, because I believe that investigation of the corridor cannot be conducted from outside it, and I believe that entry into the corridor is not survivable, and I believe these two facts together constitute a complete answer to the question of what to do about the Velkareth corridor. I am recommending that the transcript of Ranging Fleet 7's final transmissions be preserved in the archive of understood errors, unclassified, accessible to any Conclave officer at any rank who is considering an approach to the corridor or to the former Terran administrative zone. I am making these recommendations because I believe there are 214 hulls in the Velkareth corridor right now, this moment, cold and still and reading on any instrument we have exactly the way debris reads. And I believe the next survey figure, if we were to survey the corridor in 183 years, which I am recommending we do not do, would be higher than 214, and the figure after that would be higher still. I believe the formation is not finished. I do not know how close it is to finished, or what finished means for a formation that has been assembling for at least 400 years and possibly 900. I do not know if there is a number at which it stops, or if the number is simply whatever the corridor can hold. I have no data on this. I have submitted my recommendations. I filed this document under my own seal, at Watch Station Veltherin Sul, on the 11th day following the final transmission of Ranging Fleet 7. My hope is that whoever reads this acts accordingly. I am not certain anyone will read this. The corridor is quiet.